defense.
Okay, please report. Counsel for the state.
Good morning.
I know this has been a very difficult 3 days for y'all. And I know we all make decisions like we talked about that we regret. Sometimes we lie and we regret those lies. Sometimes we make decisions that we have to live with the consequences for the rest of our lives. And that's something that Wesley is going to live with for the rest of his life. And he didn't call 911. He didn't bust into the room where his wife was asleep with his other daughter and ask for help, and she's a nurse. He's also a man that's before you with no criminal history. No, we're not here to ask for probation. I'm not here to insult your intelligence. Let's make that point clear. But I think it's important for you to understand there is that full range of punishment. And I'm going to want you to start at the beginning and work your way till you get to that point where you think justice is served. Mr. Mathews told you that he leaves this up to you. He wasn't going to get bullied by the prosecutor into making any statements about, yes, give me life. He knows this is a hard decision. He knows the testimony that came through, but he also accepted responsibility. He didn't make y'all go out and find him guilty. This is strictly a punishment case for injury to a child, specifically by omission. And they're trying to say he killed him, but they can't prove it. But they're going to say that was on him because of where he put the body. But at the end of the day, he is charged with injury to a child by omission resulting in serious bodily injury or death. Obviously, we have death here. So the difficult question is, what are the factors that you all should take into consideration in determining what is fair for Sharon and what is also fair for Mr. Mathews? I submit there is one Mr. Mathews, and that one Mr. Mathews made a horrible decision in October of 2016. Or 17, sorry. Of 2017. You can see from the videos, you can see from the photographs that they loved and adored Sharon. Yeah, does she have some challenges? Yes. What kids of ours don't have challenges and challenges every day? Some more than others. Some require many medical appointments. Some not as much. But there wasn't one single witness that the state brought in that said Mathews had ever harmed a child. Ever. And I think that's important. Because had there been one, given the vast resources that the Richardson Police Department has, Federal Bureau of Investigation has, the District Attorney's Office has, they would have brought you someone that said, we've seen Mr. Mathews mistreat a child. We've seen Mr. Mathews beat his kids. We've seen Mr. Mathews kick a dog. We've seen Mr. Mathews do something. And there's none of that. Because if there was, they would have brought it to you. We have a very tragic day. Mr. Mathews lied when he spoke to the police. I submit to you his truth statement was on the second day. And he was trying to fill in more gaps yesterday and this morning about that day. But you can go back and you can look at those videos. And you'll see Mr. Mathews sitting there talking about doing CPR. And isn't it interesting that when the state asked Detective Diaz, was everything Mr. Mathews said was a lie? And Detective Diaz said yes. But then when I pointed out two very important facts that they were able to independently corroborate, he was being truthful. So you have those truths. And yes, we don't have a magic ball that we can look into the past and see what happened. No. But I would submit to you that the evidence that you had before you about how the body was discovered and found, hearing from the testimony, was sufficient. But the state wanted you to see the graphic photos. For what reason? It's a reasonable inference from the evidence that the only reason the state wanted you to see it was to shock you into only seeing this thing one way. Life, 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 life. Because it's so shocking. Because they know they didn't have anything else to stand up on except to shame you into doing a life sentence. Now, if that's your decision, based on studying everything, Mr. Mathews told you he'd accept it. Because he knows it's your decision after you take everything into consideration. But if you feel 30 years is sufficient, then it's 30 years. But who is it for me to tell you all what to do? I'm asking you to consider the full range. Think, look, study. If you need to look at the discovery of, not the discovery, but the evidence that's been submitted, the videos, look at it. But really give it some attention and do what you think is fair. To get up here and tell you what you need to do and say it has to be a life sentence, I think that's an insult. If that's your decision at the end of the day, then it is. But if you're thinking somewhere else, then it's somewhere else. But that's your call, not theirs. They get to make their argument just like I get to. They make decisions on what you see and what you don't see. If you'll recall, on the first day of trial, Mr. Fine stood up here and said and read the indictment that Wesley Mathews, hereinafter called the defendant, on or about the 7th day of October 2017 in the county of Dallas, state of Texas, did unlawfully then and there, intentionally or knowingly, by omission, cause serious bodily injury to Sharon Mathews, a child 14 years of age or younger, hereinafter called complainant, by failing to seek adequate medical attention for Sharon. And their whole time, their whole redirect across Wesley was, you murdered him. You murdered him. Trying to get Wesley to admit to something that wasn't true. If they felt they had murdered, Wesley had murdered this child, we wouldn't have been here on these charges. Plain and simple. You cannot put a pretty bow on this case. I know that. But let's look at this case for what it really is. It's an inaction that resulted in a death. Not calling 911, not seeking medical attention. I know. We still have a beautiful adoptive daughter that was very well loved. And you can see that by her videos, by the pictures. Because those photos don't lie. Those videos don't lie. They do show you that Sharon was loved by Mr. Mathews and his wife. And it's like Wesley said, he has to live with this. Every minute of every day. What if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? Does that excuse what he did? No. But I'm hoping it puts things into perspective. Can we get past the lies to Detective Diaz? Can we get past the lies of being quiet for 2 weeks and letting law enforcement do their work, and we thank them for it? And Mr. Mathews apologized. Is he a man that shows remorse and cries? Obviously not. But he's a man who weeps in private, as he told you. And we all weep. We all show remorse in different ways. We don't fit a cookie-cutter mold that the state is trying to make out of him like they want him to be. But Mr. Mathews mourns in his own way. They got upset because he didn't write any letters about Sharon. And I asked Detective Diaz, that also sounds like someone who was instructed by their attorney not to mention anything about the case. Period, in the story. For once, you have a client that does something you need them to do. They make a big thing about these text messages between Cini and Mr. Mathews in February, where they're taking these things in context, but it's also out of context because the phone conversations that happened around those weren't mentioned. How many times do we have text communication, like I asked Detective Diaz, with someone, and at the same time, I don't want to waste time texting anymore, let me just pick up the phone and get it done with that way. That's human nature. So when we're looking at those texts, we need to take those things as they are. It is a text. We all know texts don't have emotions behind it. A lot of time they're just black and white. We don't know everything surrounding. We don't know, was there a heartfelt conversation before? Let's pray. But he didn't write it in a text. You don't know. But it's their duty, it's their job to prove this case. Mr. Mathews helped out by saying, I'm guilty. I did it. Punishment? We have to consider the evidence that is there. The charge that is there. He's not charged with capital murder. He's not charged with murder. But yet, they made it all about you killed her. As if this was a murder case. This is an injury to a child by omission, resulting in death. His inactions led to her death. His inactions of not seeking medical attention led to her death. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. So the question is, what is right? What's right for the state? What's right for Mr. Mathews? What is the right, fair punishment? We qualified you on anywhere from 5 to 99 years of life. Qualified you on probation. You all said you all can consider the full range. And I trust that you will. I trust that you will search deep into your souls. I trust that you will go back there and deliberate. And deliberate doesn't mean necessarily talking with one another, but searching in your soul. What do you think is right, just, and fair? And to stick with it. Whatever you believe is right, just, and fair. I can't tell you what that magic number is. Because that would mean I'm presuming things for each and every single one of you. You saw Mr. Mathews. You can judge him as you wish. Was he telling the truth? Was he telling parts of truth? Or was he bold-faced lying? I believe there was a lot of truth that came from this witness stand from Mr. Mathews. I also think it's hard to talk about something like this. Let's go to Dr. Daigle for a moment. State keeps mentioning Dr. Daigle. Well, let's talk about her testimony. She told you from this witness stand on cross-examination. Number one, she can't tell you exactly when those fractures occurred, but in her opinion, somewhere from 3 to 6 months. What a coincidence, 6 months, which is about a month before she gets to the United States. So that way they can say, none of these injuries could have happened before in India. You can look at the video that we provided you of what things were like in India, and you make a determination whether those injuries could have occurred there. Because let's look at the facts. Dr. Daigle said that one and only broken bone, the femur, was the only one that should have been noticed, because she might have been walking a little differently. The other ones, I think it was part of the lower part around the ankle, that's going to be very hard to catch just by noticing. What do we know about that time period from, let's say, August through January? August of 2016 to January of 2017. Dr. Daigle mentioned that Mrs. Mathews was pretty much watching the child 24/7. We know that Wesley was working in and out of the house. We know that this child was being seen by physical therapists and occupational therapists during that whole time. We know that this child went and saw Dr. Rosen, and you'll see this in all those medical reports many times. And if you recall, I was rattling off many visits. Physical therapist, occupational therapist, doctor's visits. Dr. Daigle had no reason to quarrel that all those existed because they're in these medical reports. So you're telling me that if there was something broken, as they're trying to say, broken bones, when these were healing fractures, folks, Dr. Daigle couldn't tell you specifically what type of injuries they were. But yet they're here inflaming, stirring up the pot. I just want you to be grounded when you look at this. Set the emotion of that gruesome picture that they forced you to look at. Set that aside for a moment and look at this case and see what is fair, just, and see what is fair and just. Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may. And Council, the mics are off at the tables. Oh,
Thank you.
thanks.
When you see little Sharon, when she was adopted in India, and you see how small and lovable she is, as I said before, with all her blessings, Mr. Mathews fell in love with that little girl and gave that girl everything that he could, every opportunity. And then there's that one day where he made a bad choice, followed by another bad choice. And I know this is gut-wrenching. I see it. But I'm asking you all to look down deep inside. Judge this for what it is. An injury to a child by omission resulting in death by failing to seek medical attention. And do what's just and fair for Sharon, and just and fair for Mr. Mathews, who has no criminal history, and not one person came in and said there was one bad act that he had done. They're trying to paint a picture that he was the one out there doing all these injuries, but they have no proof. Because it could have been, these injuries could have happened in many different ways by different individuals. It could have been by accident. We don't know. So don't let them bully you into something you don't want to do. And if it's your choice, then it's your choice. Thank you for your time and attention.